Imagine history's bedrock. Our textbooks are an elaborate deception. A facade hides forgotten remnants of a globe-spanning empire. What if human civilization's chronicle was twisted, intentionally reshaped? Unseen powers buried a lost superpower, the realm of Tartaria. This isn't fantasy, it's an unsettling mystery captivating truth seekers. Tonight we journey into this enigma, peeling back its many layers. Prepare to unravel everything you thought you knew about the past. Is our inherited history merely a fabrication, a grand illusion, maintained by those clinging to the very reins of power? This immense territory stretched across the globe, from Europe to North America. It was no wilderness, but a unified empire and advanced civilization. Its cities possessed unparalleled grandeur, with technology defying their era. They raised us thoroughly as if it had never truly existed. But what if this academic dismissal is part of a greater conspiracy? What if Tartaria was a thriving global empire whose downfall was engineered, orchestrated by shadowy groups like the Freemasons or Illuminati, entities whispered to control the very threads of historical record? Imagine this empire at its zenith, towering structures adorned with intricately crafted domes and spires that seemed to kiss the heavens. An architecture that seamlessly blended breathtaking beauty with profound functionality, achieving feats that modern engineers still struggle to replicate. These were not the crude constructions of a primitive society. They were masterpieces of design, incorporating elements that suggest an advanced understanding of electricity, sophisticated masonry techniques, and perhaps even free energy systems, drawing power directly from the atmosphere itself. Proponents of the Tartaria theory contend that this empire was a harmonious crucible of cultures. Peoples of diverse origins, including Moorish descendants from Africa and the indigenous peoples of the Americas, allegedly collaborated to construct the wonders that dotted this global landscape. According to some interpretations, the Moors, frequently depicted in historical art with regal bearing and dark complexions, were not simply invaders or traders, but pivotal architects of this realm, their lineage tracing back to ancient biblical tribes like Judah. Similarly, the Native Americans, far from being isolated hunter-gatherers, are claimed to have been master navigators and prodigious builders, their ancestors contributing to the construction of pyramids and megalithic sites that remarkably mirror those found in Egypt and Mesoamerica. These diverse peoples, it is asserted, were the true inheritors of Tartaria's immense legacy, only to have their history systematically stolen, their lands conquered, and their identities suppressed by European colonizers, who then rewrote the narrative to solidify their own dominance. But why would such a magnificent empire be deliberately hidden? The answer, as the theory intricately unfolds, points to a cataclysmic event and a subsequent cover-up of epic proportions. This brings us to the concept of the mud flood, a phenomenon that purportedly buried entire cities under immense layers of earth and sediment in the early 19th century. This was no ordinary natural disaster. It was a global reset, a devastating deluge of mud that engulfed Tartarian metropolises, leaving only their uppermost stories visible. Consider the grand buildings in cities such as Chicago, San Francisco, and even Paris, structures with basements that appear to have been painstakingly dug out from beneath the ground, windows half buried in soil, and doors leading inexplicably to nowhere. Conspiracy theorists posit that these are not new constructions, but rather excavated remnants of Tartaria, hastily repurposed by the victors to mask the truth. Photographs from the era frequently show these magnificent edifices emerging from the dirt as if the earth itself had actively risen to swallow the past. And who benefited from this grand erasure? The emerging industrial powers of Europe and America, allegedly backed by secret societies that sought to monopolize both knowledge and resources. The Freemasons, with their distinctive symbols etched into architecture across the globe, are frequently implicated as the master architects of this deception, using their pervasive influence to alter records, destroy crucial evidence, and propagate a linear history that glorifies Western progress while systematically burying the monumental achievements of others. To truly grasp the audacious scale of this alleged conspiracy, one must examine the world's fairs of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Events like the Chicago World's Columbian Exposition of 1893 showcased sprawling complexes of pristine white marble palaces, serene lagoons, and technological marvels that seemed to materialize overnight. Official history tells us these were temporary structures, purpose-built for the fairs and then painstakingly dismantled. But skeptics argue otherwise. They contend that these were surviving Tartarian buildings, unearthed after the mud flood and then displayed as fleeting novelties before being systematically destroyed, often by mysterious fires, to eliminate any lingering proof. The Panama Pacific International Exposition in San Francisco in 1915 followed a remarkably similar pattern, featuring opulent edifices that echoed ancient grandeur, only to vanish inexplicably soon after. Why the desperate haste to demolish such breathtaking beauty? Perhaps because these structures held undeniable clues to Tartaria's advanced society, including free energy devices cleverly disguised as ornamental towers and domes that harnessed atmospheric electricity, much like the revolutionary ideas later attributed to Nikola Tesla. Tesla himself, it is suggested, may have drawn profound inspiration from suppressed Tartarian knowledge, his groundbreaking inventions then stifled by the very same forces that allegedly orchestrated the empire's downfall. Delving deeper, we encounter the critical role of maps as silent, yet eloquent, witnesses to this lost world. Antique cartography from legendary explorers like Marco Polo and master cartographers such as Abraham Ortelius vividly depicted Great Tartaria as a sovereign entity, often divided into regions like Grand Tartary, Chinese Tartary, and even Muscovite Tartary. These maps showed sophisticated road networks, bustling trade routes, and cities with names that have since faded into complete obscurity. By the 1800s, however, Tartaria was fragmented and absorbed into Russia, China, and other nations, its very name relegated to folklore. Was this a natural evolution of geographical understanding, or a deliberate, coordinated act of historical revisionism? Some theorists link this erasure to the Jesuit order and the Vatican, claiming they manipulated geographical records to align with a new Eurocentric worldview, systematically eliminating non-Western empires to justify burgeoning colonialism. The Illuminati, that elusive brotherhood founded in the 18th century, is also heavily implicated, their pervasive pyramid symbols, allegedly echoing Tartarian motifs found in ancient architecture across continents. Now let us turn to the deeply human element of this profound mystery, drawing from the collective voices of those who intuitively sense a hidden truth beneath the polished surface of history. In the comments of seekers across the digital landscape, we hear echoes of a suppressed heritage, tales of a devastating mud flood that drowned everything, requiring generations to reclaim the land, and assertions that the Black Moors and Native Americans were the true architects of the Tartarian Empire. These individuals, often described as the biblical Israelites, are said to have forged this magnificent realm, their descendants in America not primarily from Africa, but from ancient lineages that navigated the seas and erected monumental structures worldwide. The Moors, as royal descendants of Judah, and the indigenous tribes as the lost 10 tribes of Israel, allegedly united to create cities and intricate railway systems that spanned the entire globe. Yet European conquerors, it is claimed, invaded, stole their territories, their histories, their cultures, and their very identities, then expunged the records to prevent any future discovery. This, the theory posits, is why we frequently see Moorish figures or Native American motifs subtly incorporated into Tartarian structures, silent, subtle hints of their true forgotten builders. Imagine walking through the streets of a modern city, gazing up at a neoclassical building with its imposing columns and elegant arches, and suddenly realizing it might be a Tartarian survivor. In Washington, D.C., the iconic dome of the Capitol building could be a relic from this era, its advanced design seemingly too sophisticated for its supposed time frame. Or consider the exquisitely ornate train stations found across Europe, such as those in Budapest or Milan, with roofs that appear engineered for energy collection rather than mere shelter. These are not mere coincidences. They are for many distinct breadcrumbs leading back to a forgotten age. The mud flood theory gains significant traction when we closely examine geological anomalies, uniform layers of sediment in urban excavations, suggesting a rapid burial event, rather than gradual accumulation over centuries, Some even speculate that this flood was engineered, perhaps through ancient alchemical means or advanced weaponry wielded by rival factions within the empire itself, or by external invaders seeking to claim its secrets. As we weave through this intricate tapestry of intrigue, consider the profound implications for our understanding of progress. If Tartaria truly possessed free energy, why does our modern world still rely so heavily on fossil fuels? If their architecture harmonized with nature, why has modern design often devolved into sterile glass and steel? The answer, according to the theory, lies in absolute control. The Freemasons and Illuminati, through their pervasive networks in banking, government, and education, allegedly ensured that humanity forgot these advancements, funneling us instead into a system of dependency. This conspiracy, it is claimed, extends to education, where curricula omit Tartaria entirely, labeling it a myth to actively discourage inquiry. Yet in the digital age, online forums and videos revive the discussion, with communities on platforms like Reddit and YouTube dissecting old photographs and maps, meticulously piecing together the fragments of this colossal puzzle. Let me share a hypothetical vignette to illustrate the powerful allure of this mystery. Envision a young explorer in the 1850s stumbling upon a vast buried city in the American Midwest. As he digs, he uncovers magnificent marble halls filled with strange devices, globes that glow without visible flame, and mechanisms that hum with an unseen power. But before he can fully document his astonishing find, agents of a secret society arrive, confiscating all artifacts and swearing him to eternal silence. This scene, though imagined, perfectly captures the essence of the Tartaria narrative, a world of lost wonder deliberately suppressed to maintain the status quo. Furthermore, the theory often intersects with other historical enigmas. The orphan trains of the late 19th century, which relocated thousands of children across America, are sometimes linked to the mud flood's aftermath, suggesting these orphans were survivors of buried Tartarian families, forcibly redistributed to erase their origins. Similarly, the great fires that devastated cities like Chicago in 1871 and San Francisco in 1906 are viewed by some not as mere accidents, but as deliberate acts to destroy remaining evidence, much like the infamous burning of ancient libraries. As we approach the heart of this unfolding mystery, I invite you to question the very foundations of your knowledge. What if the Renaissance was not a glorious rebirth, but a reclamation of forgotten Tartarian wisdom? What if the Industrial Revolution borrowed heavily from stolen blueprints? The Moors and Native Americans, in this provocative light, emerge as the true heroes of a lost saga, their monumental contributions to pyramids in Mexico, temples in India, and fortresses in Europe, all part of a grand global Tartarian network. Their biblical connections add a profound spiritual dimension, suggesting a divine heritage obscured by conquerors who feared its immense power. Remember, history is not set in stone, it is a story, often selectively told by the victors. Tartaria beckons us to look beyond the veil, to seek the truth hidden within the ruins and the faded maps. As we delve deeper into the shadows cast by the Tartarian enigma, our path leads us to one of the most perplexing elements of this forgotten narrative: the great mud flood that is said to have reshaped the world in ways we can scarcely comprehend. This hypothesis posits that sometime in the early 19th century, a colossal deluge of mud swept across continents, entombing entire cities and civilizations beneath layers of earth so thick that only fragments of their glory emerged afterward. Far from a mere geological quirk, this event raises questions that tug at the edges of possibility. Could it have been a natural catastrophe amplified by unknown forces, or perhaps something far more sinister, like a weaponized assault on humanity's progress? The mud flood theory, often intertwined with the Tartarian Empire's downfall, invites us to examine historical anomalies that defy conventional explanations, urging us to wonder if the ground beneath our feet holds secrets of a deliberate erasure. Consider the peculiar architecture scattered across modern cities, where buildings appear to sink into the soil as if swallowed by an invisible tide. In Chicago, for instance, the streets of the late 19th century reveal structures with basements that seem improbably deep, windows peering out at ground level like eyes half buried in slumber. Historical accounts describe how the city was raised in the 1850s, with engineers jacking up entire blocks to combat flooding and sewage issues. But what if this raising was not a proactive measure against recurrent water problems, but a desperate excavation following a mud apocalypse? Photographs from the era show sidewalks elevated above what should be natural terrain, and beneath them lie forgotten chambers filled with relics that hint at a prior occupancy. Skeptics of official history point to these as evidence of Tartarian remnants, cities that once thrived at a higher elevation before being inundated by a viscous flow of sediment that hardened into the landscape we know today. The mud, they argue, was not just waterlogged earth, but a liquefied slurry, perhaps triggered by seismic upheavals or atmospheric disturbances that liquefied the soil on a global scale. Venturing westward, San Francisco offers even more tantalizing clues. The city's infamous 1906 earthquake is well documented, but predating that disaster are tales of buried layers unearthed during construction. Old maps and engineering reports detail foundations sunk inexplicably deep, with artifacts like cobblestone streets and building facades discovered far below the current grade. One particularly intriguing example is the Montgomery Block, a historic structure that survived fires and quakes, yet its lower levels suggest it was partially interred before being reclaimed. Proponents of the mud flood suggest this pattern repeats in coastal and inland areas alike, where the sediment's uniformity, fine clay-like deposits, without the stratification expected from gradual accumulation, implies a singular, rapid event. Imagine a wave not of water but of churning mud cascading from mountains or erupting from the ground, smothering metropolises in hours or days. This wasn't erosion over centuries, it was a blitzkrieg of earth, leaving survivors to dig out and rebuild atop the ruins, all while the true cause remained shrouded. What could precipitate such a widespread calamity? Traditional science attributes similar phenomena to liquefaction during earthquakes or volcanic activity, but the mud flood hypothesis escalates this to a planetary reset. Some theorists link it to the Carrington event of 1859, a massive solar flare that disrupted telegraphs worldwide, perhaps an electromagnetic pulse that destabilized the Earth's crust, causing soils to behave like quicksand on an unprecedented scale. Others draw parallels to ancient legends, such as the biblical Great Flood, where waters receded to reveal a transformed world. In this view, the mud flood might be a modern echo of Noah's deluge, but instead of divine wrath via rain, it involved subterranean upheavals or melting permafrost releasing torrents of silt. The connection to Atlantis is equally compelling. Plato's accounts describe a civilization sunk by cataclysm, and if Tartaria represented a post-Atlantean society, the mud could have been the final blow in a cycle of rises and falls. Picture vast underground reservoirs bursting forth, or polar ice shifts sending mudslides across hemispheres, events that would bury advanced infrastructures while sparing nomadic or elevated populations. Yet the intrigue deepens when we entertain the notion that this flood was no accident of nature, but an engineered weapon in a covert war. Enter the concept of geological warfare, where ancient or hidden technologies manipulated the earth itself as a battlefield. Theorists speculate that rival factions, perhaps remnants of older empires or secretive cabals, deployed devices capable of inducing liquefaction through sonic vibrations or electromagnetic fields. Historical whispers of earthquake machines echo here. Nikola Tesla himself experimented with oscillators that could shake buildings. And if Tartarian knowledge included such tools, a misused version might have triggered the mud. Imagine a scenario where Tartaria's enemies, sensing the Empire's technological superiority, unleashed a chain reaction, focused energy beams, or subterranean detonations that turned solid ground into a flowing morass, entombing armies, cities and secrets alike. This isn't mere fantasy. Modern militaries explore geoengineering from weather modification to induced seismicity, suggesting such capabilities existed in veiled forms centuries ago. Exploring further, evidence mounts in unexpected places. In Russia, the heartland of what maps once called Great Tartary, excavations reveal buried fortresses and settlements under uniform sediment layers dating to the 18th and 19th centuries. The city of Kazan, with its Kremlin partially restored from apparent submersion, fuels speculation that the mud targeted strategic hubs across the continent. Salt Lake City in Utah presents anomalies. Pioneer accounts describe arriving at a landscape dotted with ancient ruins, half-buried, which they attributed to biblical peoples, but which align with Tartarian aesthetics, domed structures, and precise masonry now integrated into Mormon architecture. Even in Europe, Paris's catacombs and underground quarries hide levels that some claim were flooded with mud, preserving artifacts from a pre-flood era. These sites share a common thread. The buried portions often feature advanced engineering like seamless stonework or unexplained conduits, hinting at a society far beyond the horse and cart technology of the time. The timeline adds another layer of mystery. Why the early 19th century? This period coincides with global upheavals, the Napoleonic Wars, the War of 1812, and volcanic eruptions like Tambora in 1815, which caused the year without a summer. Could volcanic ash mixed with rains have contributed to the mud's viscosity, or was Tambora's eruption a cover for artificial triggers? Records from that era are sparse, with many archives lost to fires or natural disasters, raising suspicions of a coordinated purge. In America, the rapid urbanization post-1812 saw cities like New York excavating and filling streets, ostensibly for infrastructure, but possibly to conceal the flood's aftermath. Old engravings depict horse-drawn carts hauling away tons of earth, and beneath Manhattan lie forgotten tunnels and vaults that echo Tartarian designs, vast echoing spaces with no clear purpose in official history, pushing the boundaries of curiosity. Some connect the mud flood to celestial influences. Comet sightings in the 1810s and 1820s, including the Great Comet of 1811, are cited as harbingers, their tails perhaps depositing cosmic dust that altered atmospheric conditions, leading to hyperliquefaction. Alternatively, a pole shift, a sudden reorientation of Earth's magnetic field, could have destabilized continents, causing mud to flow like rivers. Geophysical data shows anomalies in sediment cores from this period, with unexplained spikes in magnetic particles, fueling debates among fringe scientists. If Tartaria harnessed geomagnetic energy for their technologies, a disruption in the field might have backfired catastrophically, turning their power sources against them. But let's not overlook the human stories woven into this tapestry. Diaries from settlers in the American West describe landscapes freshly muddied, with Native American tribes recounting oral histories of a great burying that forced migrations. The Cherokee, for example, speak of ancient mounds, artificial hills that some theorists claim are mud-covered pyramids from Tartarian outposts. In Africa and Asia, similar legends persist, the Dogon people's tales of sunken cities, or the Chinese chronicles of mud deluges during the Qing dynasty, these narratives converge on a global event, suggesting coordinated memory suppression by colonial powers who benefited from the chaos, claiming empty lands that were actually freshly unearthed ruins. As questions multiply, so do the implications. If the mud flood was weaponized, who wielded it? Fingers point to emerging industrialists or ancient bloodlines preserving their dominance by resetting progress. The Rothschilds, or Rockefellers, rising in the 19th century, are sometimes accused of funding the cover-up, using newfound wealth to rewrite maps and histories. Meanwhile, phenomena like ghost cities in old photographs, empty streets flanked by grand edifices, suggest populations decimated, with survivors amnesiac or coerced into silence. Venturing into bolder territory, underground anomalies bolster the theory. Caves in Kentucky's Mammoth System reveal man-made extensions buried in silt, potentially Tartarian escape routes or storage vaults. In Turkey, Derinkuyu's subterranean city, capable of housing thousands, might have sheltered refugees from the flood's surface fury. These hidden realms prompt wonder. Did some Tartarians foresee the deluge and retreat below, emerging later to influence our world covertly? The mudflood's legacy lingers in modern mysteries too. Urban sinkholes swallowing buildings echo the past, while climate models predict similar liquefaction in future quakes. If this was a cyclical event, as some Atlantis parallels suggest, are we due for another? Such thoughts stir a profound toll, challenging us to scrutinize the soil for clues to our obscured origins. In unraveling this thread, we uncover not just a disaster, but a pivot in human destiny, one that buried brilliance to birth the age we inhabit. As layers peel away, the mud flood stands as a sentinel, guarding secrets that beckon the intrepid to dig deeper still. From the buried echoes of a silenced era, our exploration now turns to the tantalizing whispers of technologies that could have rewritten the fate of humankind. Innovations so profound they seem plucked from the pages of science fiction, yet rooted in the artifacts of a bygone world. What if the grand spires and intricate domes of Tartarian structures were not mere ornaments of aesthetic ambition, but functional conduits for harnessing the boundless energy of the atmosphere itself? This notion propels us into a realm where free energy wasn't a dream deferred, but a reality suppressed, with Nikola Tesla's visionary towers echoing designs that may have originated in the heart of this lost empire. As we navigate these ideas, prepare to question the very foundations of our energy-dependent society, for the clues suggest a civilization that drew power from the air, illuminating cities without the chains of coal or oil. Envision a landscape dotted with towering edifices, their metallic fanials and intricate lattices piercing the sky like antennas attuned to invisible forces. Theorists delving into Tartarian lore propose that these were no ordinary buildings. They functioned as massive receivers, tapping into atmospheric electricity, a natural reservoir of power generated by the Earth's ionosphere and thunderstorms. This concept, often dubbed etheric energy or radiant energy, posits that the atmosphere is alive with charged particles, ready to be harvested without the need for fuel. In the late 19th century, as the industrial age gripped the world, patents began surfacing for devices that captured this ambient force. But many vanished into obscurity, fueling suspicions of deliberate sabotage by emerging energy barons. Could these inventions have been reverse-engineered from Tartarian relics, unearthed after the mud cataclysm, and swiftly co-opted? Nikola Tesla, the enigmatic inventor whose name is synonymous with electrical wizardry, enters the narrative here as a bridge between eras. Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, constructed in 1901 on Long Island, was designed to transmit wireless power across vast distances, drawing from the Earth's resonant frequencies. Yet, funding dried up mysteriously, and the tower was demolished in 1917 amid whispers of suppression by financiers like J.P. Morgan, who profited immensely from wired electricity. Intriguingly, Tartarian enthusiasts draw parallels between Wardenclyffe and the ornate cupolas atop Old World architecture. Structures like the Singer Building in New York or the Palais Garnier in Paris, with their gilded roofs and spire-like protrusions. These, they argue, were proto-Tesla towers, scaled up across the empire to form a global grid of free energy distribution. Imagine a network where power flowed freely without meters or monopolies, powering street lamps that glowed eternally and machines that hummed without combustion. Delving into the mechanics, the theory hinges on the concept of cold electricity, a form of energy that doesn't heat conductors like conventional current, but flows with ethereal efficiency. Edwin Gray, an inventor in the 1970s, demonstrated motors running on this principle, claiming to have rediscovered lost techniques, perhaps Tartarian ones, that converted radiant energy into usable power. Gray's devices, shrouded in controversy and allegedly suppressed by government raids, mirrored Tesla's experiments with high-frequency oscillations. In a Tartarian context, this cold electricity might have animated the elaborate fountains and mechanical wonders showcased at world's fairs, events now seen by some as showcases of salvage technology. The Chicago Exposition, for instance, featured illuminated lagoons and electric railways that consumed far less power than records suggest, hinting at hidden sources tapped from the air via the fair's towering structures. What fuels the curiosity further is the architectural evidence scattered worldwide. Star forts, those distinctive star-shaped bastions from the Renaissance era, are interpreted not merely as defensive works, but as geomagnetic amplifiers, their precise geometries aligning with ley lines to channel earthly and atmospheric energies. Built across Europe, Asia, and the Americas, places once under purported Tartarian influence, these forts' moats and angles could have created resonant fields, generating power through piezoelectric effects or harmonic vibrations. Modern experiments with similar shapes show they can focus sound waves or electromagnetic pulses. Scaled up, they might have powered entire regions. Picture a fort in the Netherlands, its points aimed skyward, quietly harvesting storm energy to light nearby villages, a sophisticated system erased when colonial powers repurposed them as mere military relics. Venturing into ether technology, an outdated yet revived idea, Tartarians are said to have mastered the luminiferous aether, a hypothetical medium filling space once dismissed by Einstein's relativity, but now echoed in quantum field theories. Tesla himself championed the aether, describing it as a sea of energy from which power could be extracted indefinitely. In this framework, Tartarian domes acted as capacitors, their metallic surfaces ionizing air to create plasma conduits. Historical photos of onion-domed cathedrals in Russia, core Tartarian territory, show finials that remarkably resemble Tesla coils, potentially discharging energy in controlled bursts. Some speculate these structures doubled as weather modifiers, dissipating storms or even inducing rain, explaining the empire's agricultural prowess amid harsh climates. The suppression angle adds a chilling layer of intrigue, tying into broader free energy conspiracies. Why, if such technology existed, do we toil under fossil fuels? Theorists point to a cabal of industrialists and secret societies who, post-mud flood, seized Tartarian remnants to hoard knowledge. The Rockefeller and Carnegie empires rose on oil and steel industries that would crumble if free energy prevailed. Patents from around 1900, like those for atmospheric electricity harvesters by inventors such as Hermann Plosen, describe balloon-mounted collectors, mirroring alleged Tartarian airships, blimps or zeppelins that drew power mid-flight. These ideas faded, buried in archives or discredited, much like Tesla's fate after his tower's failure. Curiosity peaks with modern echoes. Communities experimenting with Tesla-inspired coils report anomalous energy gains, seemingly defying thermodynamics' second law. On forums dedicated to alternative history, builders recreate Tartarian generators using mercury-filled tubes and crystal arrays, claiming over-unity outputs, more energy out. While skeptics cry pseudoscience, these efforts revive questions about lost knowledge. What if the Philadelphia experiment of 1943, involving naval invisibility, tapped Tartarian aether tech, leading to disastrous side effects like time distortions? Exploring global connections, Tartarian free energy might link to ancient sites like Egypt's pyramids, viewed as power plants with subterranean chambers resonating at specific frequencies. The Moors, integral to Tartarian lore, allegedly brought alchemical secrets from Africa, blending them with indigenous American knowledge of crystal grids. Native tribes' medicine wheels, circular stone arrangements, could have been energy amplifiers aligning with solstices to harness solar winds. In Mesoamerica, Mayan temples with step designs mirror Tesla's oscillatory circuits, potentially broadcasting power wirelessly across jungles. The aesthetic of Tartarian tech intrigues as well. Ornate, functional beauty where form served purpose. Mercury, a conductor in ancient myths, might have filled building channels to facilitate energy flow, explaining alchemical symbols etched into facades. Fires that ravaged cities post-flood, like London's 1666 blaze, are theorized as attempts to melt these mercury systems, erasing evidence. Surviving mercury-based artifacts like antique barometers in museums hint at broader applications. Ponder the societal implications. A world powered by free energy would dismantle hierarchies, empowering individuals over corporations. Tartaria's downfall, in this light, becomes a cautionary tale of envy and control, where invaders dismantled the grid, scattering components into myths. Today's renewable pushes solar wind pale against atmospheric harvesting, which requires no panels or turbines, just a tuned architecture. As we probe deeper, anomalies surface: unexplained power surges in old buildings, like the Empire State Building's original antennas causing radio interference, suggesting latent Tartarian wiring. Underground vaults in cities reveal coiled cables of unknown alloy, resistant to corrosion and perhaps designed for high-voltage etheric currents. The quest for proof drives modern seekers to replicate these systems. DIY enthusiasts build Joe cells, water-based energy devices echoing Tartarian hydrology, claiming propulsion without fuel. Videos of glowing orbs in recreated domes fuel debates. Is this rediscovered tech or illusion? Enwrapping this thread of wonder, the forgotten technologies of Tartaria beckon us to imagine a brighter path untaken, where Tesla's dreams were everyday reality. Yet the veil persists, urging us to seek fragments in the world around us, forever curious about the power that once lit the skies. Scattered across the globe like enigmatic jewels embedded in the Earth's surface, star forts stand as silent guardians of a history that refuses to conform to the tidy narratives we've been taught. These polygonal marvels, with their pointed bastions radiating outward in geometric precision, appear in over 35 countries, from the windswept coasts of Portugal to the dense jungles of Sri Lanka, and even the urban sprawl of modern America. Officially, they're relics of the gunpowder age, engineered in the 15th and 16th centuries to withstand cannon fire by eliminating blind spots in defense. But pause for a moment and consider, why do so many of these structures share an almost identical blueprint, as if drafted by a single visionary mind across oceans and epochs? Could their star-like forms hint at something far more profound than military strategy? Perhaps a forgotten purpose tied to the rhythms of the planet itself. Take a mental journey to the Naarden Star Fort in the Netherlands, a pristine example encircled by moats that mirror its angular symmetry like a watery halo. Built, or so the story goes, in the late 17th century, its walls form a 12-pointed star, each bastion a sharp arrowhead designed to deflect artillery. Yet upon closer inspection, the fort's layout aligns curiously with local ley lines, those invisible pathways of energy theorized to crisscross the Earth. Enthusiasts of alternative histories whisper that such alignments are no coincidence. Instead, these forts might have served as amplifiers for geomagnetic forces, channeling the planet's natural vibrations into usable power. Imagine standing at its center during a thunderstorm, the air humming with electricity as the structure's geometry focuses ambient energy, much like a lens concentrates sunlight. Is it possible that what we dismiss as defensive architecture was actually a network of ancient power stations, humming in harmony with the cosmos? Venturing further afield, the star forts of India, such as the one at Bassein near Mumbai, add layers to this puzzle, Constructed during Portuguese colonial times, its weathered stone points jut into the Arabian Sea, surrounded by remnants of intricate water channels. Traditional accounts frame it as a bulwark against invaders, but some researchers point to its resemblance to Semitic patterns, those mesmerizing shapes formed by sound waves vibrating through sand or water. If vibrations can sculpt matter on a small scale, why not on a grand one? Theorists suggested these forts were tuned to specific frequencies, perhaps generating harmonic fields that promoted well-being or even altered consciousness for those within. Picture communities gathering inside, not for battle drills, but for rituals where the fort's design resonated with healing tones, fostering joy and unity among inhabitants. This idea gains traction when you note how many star forts incorporate water features, moats, canals, or reservoirs that could have acted as conductors for acoustic or electromagnetic waves. These forts could have pulsed with life, converting natural forces into beneficial outputs like light, heat, or even mood-enhancing fields. The sheer ubiquity of these structures fuels endless speculation. In North America, Fort Monroe in Virginia echoes the design of European counterparts, its 7 bastions forming a near-perfect heptagon. Built in the early 19th century, it overlooks the Chesapeake Bay, but its foundations hint at older origins, with some layers buried deeper than expected. Could this be a clue to a pre-colonial presence, a remnant of a transcontinental civilization that predates official timelines? Proponents of the Tartarian hypothesis argue yes, positioning star forts as outposts of a vast empire that spanned from Siberia to the Americas. In this view, the forts weren't born from Italian Renaissance engineers like Michelangelo or Scamozzi, but inherited from an earlier epoch, repurposed by later powers who obscured their true function. What if the defensive narrative was a convenient retrofit, masking their role in a global energy grid that harnessed the ether? The hypothetical medium once thought to fill space and carry electromagnetic waves. Delve into the mathematics behind their design and the intrigue deepens. Star forts often adhere to sacred geometry, with angles and proportions mirroring the golden ratio or Platonic solids. The citadel of Lille in France, for instance, boasts a pentagonal core with extended ravelins, its layout evoking the pentagram, a symbol long associated with mystical energies. Some speculate these geometries created resonant chambers where sound or vibration could be amplified to produce effects beyond our current understanding. Modern experiments with cymatics show how frequencies shape matter. Apply that to a massive scale, and a star fort might have functioned as a giant tuning fork, drawing power from the Earth's magnetic field or atmospheric ions. Envision lightning storms supercharging the structure, its points acting as antennas to capture and distribute energy wirelessly, illuminating nearby settlements without a single wire or fuel source. This energy-centric interpretation aligns with broader questions about historical anomalies. Why do so many star forts feature underground tunnels? Why do so many star forts feature underground tunnels and chambers extending far beyond what's needed for storage or escape? In places like the Star Fort of Almeida in Portugal, these subterranean networks form labyrinths that could have housed mechanisms for energy storage or distribution. Skeptics attribute them to military logistics, but imagine instead capacitors or resonators storing harvested power for communal use. The theory extends to their watery surroundings. Moats might not have been mere barriers but integral components, using water as a medium for piezoelectric effects, generating electricity from pressure or vibration during seismic activity, or even rhythmic human gatherings. Crossing into Asia, the Star Fort of Osaka Castle in Japan presents a fusion of styles, its outer defenses incorporating star-like elements amid traditional samurai architecture. Though rebuilt in the 20th century, its origins traced to the late 16th century, coinciding with a period of rapid technological exchange. Could traders or migrants from the West, or perhaps from a shared ancient source, have influenced its design? In Tartarian lore, such forts marked the boundaries of a unified realm where energy devices ensured prosperity across diverse cultures. The Moors, often cited as master builders in these theories, are said to have infused the designs with alchemical knowledge, blending African, European, and Asian elements into a harmonious whole. What secrets might lie in the alignments of these forts with celestial bodies, their points oriented towards solstice sunrises or key constellations? The African continent holds its own enigmas, with structures like Fort Jesus in Mombasa, Kenya, exhibiting star fort characteristics amid Swahili influences. Built by the Portuguese in the late 16th century, its angular walls overlook the Indian Ocean. But local legends speak of older fortifications predating European arrival. If star forts were energy hubs, their coastal placements make sense, harnessing tidal forces or saltwater conductivity to boost efficiency. Ponder the global pattern. Many cluster along trade routes or geomagnetic hotspots, suggesting a deliberate network rather than isolated defenses. A unified system could have facilitated communication or power sharing across vast distances, predating our modern grids by centuries. Skepticism abounds, of course. Historians emphasize the evolution from medieval castles to Tracite Italian forts, crediting innovators like Vauban in France for perfecting the design against evolving warfare. Yet, even mainstream accounts acknowledge the fort's acoustic properties, echoes that could disorient attackers, or their resilience to earthquakes, hinting at unintended multifunctional benefits. In the Tartarian framework, this resilience stems from intentional tuning to Earth's frequencies, preventing structural failure while enhancing energy flow. Consider the abandoned star fort of Elmina in Ghana, its bastions weathered by time. Beneath the surface, unexplored vaults might hold clues to forgotten tech, from crystal arrays to metallic alloys that conducted etheric currents. As we circle back to the Americas, Fort McHenry in Baltimore, famous for inspiring the Star-Spangled Banner, reveals another facet. Its star shape, with 5 bastions, overlooks the harbor, but its construction in the late 18th century overlaps with reports of unexplained archaeological finds. In conspiracy circles, it's linked to a broader suppression. After cataclysmic events buried older layers, these forts were excavated and claimed as new builds. What if their true legacy involves balancing human endeavors with natural forces, creating oases of harmony in a turbulent world? The allure of star forts lies in their duality, monuments to human ingenuity or portals to lost wisdom. As satellite imagery reveals more hidden examples in remote areas, the questions multiply. Were they nodes in a planetary circuit, sustaining a civilization that thrived on symbiosis with the environment? Or do they simply represent the pinnacle of defensive evolution? The truth may elude us, but the pursuit stirs a profound curiosity, urging us to look beyond the visible and listen for the echoes of what might have been. In the glittering annals of human achievement, few spectacles capture the imagination quite like the grand world's fairs of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. These vast expositions, where nations paraded their ingenuity, cultures clashed in harmonious display, and visions of the future materialized amid lagoons and pavilions, drew millions of visitors in cities like Chicago, St. Louis, and San Francisco. They showcased marvels that seemed to defy the very limits of contemporary engineering. Yet, beneath the polished surface of these celebrated gatherings lies a web of unanswered questions that beckon us to peer closer. Were these fairs truly built from scratch in mere months? Or did they unveil the salvaged splendor of a concealed past? As we wander through the echoes of these ephemeral empires, the Tartarian hypothesis emerges, suggesting that what was presented as innovation might have been the last glimpses of a vanquished civilization, hastily exhibited before being consigned to oblivion through calculated acts of demolition and fire. Let us first transport ourselves to the heart of Chicago in 1893, where the World's Columbian Exposition unfolded like a dream woven from white plaster and electric lights. Spanning over 600 acres along the shores of Lake Michigan, this white city featured neoclassical palaces, intricate canals, and towering statues that evoked the grandeur of ancient Rome or Athens. The Court of Honor, with its basin reflecting the domes and colonnades, was illuminated by thousands of incandescent bulbs, a feat credited to the genius of inventors like Thomas Edison and George Westinghouse. Official records claim the fair was constructed in under 2 years, employing tens of thousands of workers who erected structures primarily from staff, a temporary material of plaster over wood and iron frames. But consider the sheer scale. Over 200 buildings, including the massive manufacturers and liberal arts building, which spanned 32 acres and stood as the largest roofed structure in the world at the time. How could such opulence arise so swiftly in a city still recovering from the Great Fire of 1871? Tartarian proponents whisper that these weren't new creations at all, but excavated remnants of a pre-existing metropolis, unearthed from the mud layers of a recent cataclysm, and repurposed to dazzle the masses while masking their true origins. The fair's rapid assembly fuels this speculation. Photographs from the era show construction sites where buildings appear partially buried, with workers seemingly digging out foundations rather than laying them anew. The lagoons and waterways, engineered by landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted, mirror ancient canal systems found in purported Tartarian sites across Europe and Asia. What if these waters weren't just for aesthetic pleasure, but echoed functional aqueducts from a lost era, designed to harness hydraulic power or even atmospheric energies? The exposition introduced the public to wonders like the first Ferris wheel, a colossal structure that some theorists link to Tartarian mechanical prowess, its rotation symbolizing cycles of rise and fall in civilizations. Yet the fair's closure in October 1893 marked the beginning of its eerie demise. Within months, fires ravaged the grounds, not once but in multiple incidents, culminating in a blaze on the 5th of July 1894 that reduced the White City to ashes. Official explanations cite arson or electrical faults, but the timing raises eyebrows. Why destroy such architectural treasures so soon after their unveiling, especially when proposals existed to preserve them as a permanent park? This pattern of exhibition followed by erasure repeats in subsequent fairs, each one a potential window into suppressed history. Journey westward to San Francisco for the Panama Pacific International Exposition of 1915, a phoenix rising from the rubble of the 1906 earthquake and fire. Held to celebrate the completion of the Panama Canal, this fair transformed the Marina District into a jewel-studded wonderland with the Tower of Jewels, a 43-story edifice encrusted in over 100,000 cut glass novelties, sparkling under searchlights. The fair's architecture blended Boer art styles with exotic motifs, including the Palace of Fine Arts, a rotunda and colonnade that evoked classical ruins amid lagoons teeming with swans. Built on filled marshland, the structures were said to be temporary. Yet their intricate details, mosaics, murals and sculptural friezes, suggest craftsmanship far beyond what rushed labor could achieve. Tartarian narratives propose that these weren't hasty builds, but rehabilitated Tartarian edifices, their domes and arches resonant with the energy-harvesting designs of a forgotten age. The fair zone, its midway of amusements, featured rides and exhibits that hinted at advanced technologies, like the aeroscope, a towering elevator that lifted visitors for panoramic views, perhaps a nod to aerial observatories from a Tartarian skyline. Intriguingly, the Panama Pacific Fair's demolition was as swift as its creation. By late 1916, most buildings were razed, with only the Palace of Fine Arts spared through public outcry and later rebuilt in concrete. Fires again played a role, with suspicious blazes consuming pavilions post-closure. Why the urgency to dismantle? Some speculate it was to prevent scrutiny of anomalies like the fair's electrical systems that powered exhibits with uncanny efficiency, possibly tapping into residual Tartarian grids. The event coincided with World War I's onset, a period of global upheavals that theorists link to concerted efforts in concealing historical truths. Imagine the fair as a controlled reveal, elites showcasing Tartarian artifacts to gauge public reaction, then obliterating them to maintain the illusion of progress stemming solely from modern invention. Woven into this tapestry is the enigmatic saga of the orphan trains, a movement that relocated over 200,000 children from eastern cities to rural Midwest and Western homes between 1854 and 1929. Sponsored by organizations like the Children's Aid Society, these trains are portrayed in history as a benevolent response to urban poverty and overcrowding. But in the context of Tartarian conspiracies, they take on a darker hue. Were these orphans survivors of the mud flood's devastation, displaced from buried Tartarian communities, and redistributed to erase their cultural memories? The timeline overlaps eerily with the fairs. Many children arrived in areas near exposition sites like Chicago and San Francisco during Reconstruction booms. Accounts describe these youths as disoriented, speaking unfamiliar dialects, or exhibiting knowledge of advanced concepts, which foster homes dismissed as fantasy. These theorists point to photographs of solemn-faced children on platforms, suggesting they were not mere street urchins but refugees from a collapsed empire, their parents lost to the cataclysm, or enslaved in hidden labor forces rebuilding the New World Order. The St. Louis Mayer Purchase Exposition of 1904 adds another chapter to this unfolding mystery. Covering over 1,200 acres, it featured the largest fairgrounds ever, with palaces dedicated to electricity, transportation, and anthropology. The fair's Pike amusement strip included replicas of global wonders from Irish villages to Philippine exhibits, but Tartarian lenses reinterpret these as veiled displays of conquered Tartarian provinces. The fair introduced ice cream cones and iced tea to the masses, yet its grand halls, like the festival hall with its cascading waterfalls, mirrored hydraulic engineering from alleged Tartarian aqueducts. Demolition followed swiftly after closure, with fires in 1904 and subsequent years reducing structures to rubble. One surviving relic, the birdcage at the St. Louis Zoo, hints at the fair's opulence. But why preserve an aviary while torching engineering marvels? Perhaps because the cage symbolized containment of knowledge, of history, of the very essence of a free Tartarian society. As we trace these fairs' threads, patterns emerge that stoke endless curiosity. The Philadelphia Centennial of 1876, America's first major fair, showcased the Corliss engine, a massive steam behemoth powering the grounds. Yet, its neoclassical buildings, demolished post-event, bore motifs echoing Tartarian symbols found on antique maps. In Paris, the 1889 Exposition Universelle unveiled the Eiffel Tower, a structure some claim was retrofitted from a Tartarian antenna, its iron lattice designed for energy conduction rather than mere observation. Fires and wartime destruction later altered the site, fueling theories of systematic purging. Across the Atlantic, the 1900 Paris Fair expanded on this, with moving sidewalks and electric trains that previewed futuristic transit technologies, possibly pilfered from Tartarian blueprints. The human element intensifies the enigma. Inventors like Tesla demonstrated wireless transmission at these fairs. Yet, their ideas were sidelined as oil barons rose. Attendees reported ethereal experiences, glowing pavilions at night, unexplained harmonies from fountains, even claims of levitating displays dismissed as illusions. Were these glimpses of Tartarian tech briefly revived before suppression? The fair's anthropological exhibits parading indigenous peoples in villages take a sinister turn in Tartarian views as staged reminders of conquered Moorish and native lineages, their roles in building the empire downplayed to justify colonial narratives. Financial motives lurk in the shadows. Fairs were funded by tycoons like Vanderbilt and Rockefeller, who profited from railroads and resource industries threatened by free energy relics. Demolitions cleared land for profitable redevelopment, but at what cost to heritage? Surviving artifacts, like Chicago's Museum of Science and Industry, housed in the fair's Palace of Fine Arts, contain exhibits that subtly nod to advanced pasts, from ancient batteries to unexplained mechanisms. Ponder the global ripple. London's Crystal Palace of 1851, a glass and iron behemoth, burned in 1936 after relocation, Another accidental loss. Melbourne's 1880 exhibition hall still stands, but altered, its original grandeur muted. These events, spaced decades apart, form a chronology of revelation and concealment, each fair a breadcrumb leading to Tartaria's threshold. In this labyrinth of what-ifs, the world's fairs transcend mere celebrations. They become theaters of deception, where the old world's ghosts danced one last waltz before vanishing. As flames consumed plaster and promise, did they also incinerate truths about our origins? The orphans, scattered like seeds, carried fragments of that world in their stories, tales of buried cities and stolen skies. Today, as we sift through faded postcards and grainy films, the fairs invite us to question what treasures were lost in those pyres, and who orchestrated the spectacle's final curtain. Unrolling the fragile parchment of time, we find ourselves confronted with cartographic enigmas that challenge the very fabric of recorded history. Ancient maps that once boldly proclaimed the existence of a sprawling domain known as Tartaria, only to see it fade into obscurity as if erased by an invisible hand. These relics, etched by explorers and scholars from the Renaissance onward, offer a tantalizing glimpse into a world where boundaries shifted not just with conquests, but perhaps with deliberate intent. How did a landmass depicted as a colossal empire, rivaling the might of known powers, vanish from atlases by the dawn of the modern era? Was it a mere evolution of geographical knowledge, or a calculated revision to bury uncomfortable truths? As we trace the lines of these forgotten charts, layer by layer, the story unfolds not as a linear progression, but as a mosaic of intrigue, where each map becomes a puzzle piece hinting at a rewritten past. The journey begins in the flickering candlelight of 16th century Europe, where mapmakers like Abraham Ortelius compiled their visions of the world in works such as the Theatrum Orbis Terrarum, the first modern atlas published in 1570. Ortelius, drawing from accounts of travelers like Marco Polo, illustrated this region with cities such as Cambalu, Beijing and Sandu, Shangdu, but labeled the northern expanses as Grand Tartaria, a domain of nomadic hordes and untamed wilderness. The map's intricate engravings show rivers flowing into unknown seas, with notations of Scythian tribes and Mongol descendants, painting Tartaria as a unified entity under a shadowy overlord. Yet what stirs the mind is the precision amid the ambiguity, borders that seem too defined for a land Europeans scarcely penetrated. Did Ortelius unwittingly capture the vestiges of a real empire, or was his depiction influenced by whispers of a greater power that later chroniclers sought to diminish? Fast forward to the early 17th century, and the intrigue intensifies with maps from the Dutch Golden Age, such as Jodocus Hondius's 1633 rendition simply titled Tartaria. This copperplate engraving, hand-colored in vibrant hues, expands the territory westward, brushing against Muscovy, Russia, and southward into Persia, with detailed vignettes of fur-clad warriors and exotic beasts roaming the plains. Hondius, building on Mercator's projections, included annotations from Russian explorers like those compiled by Nicolaus Wittson, who described Tartaria as a land of immense wealth in furs, gold and spices. The map divides the region into parts like Chinese Tartary and independent Tartary, yet unifies them under a singular banner, suggesting political cohesion rather than fragmented tribes. One cannot help but wonder, why do these divisions appear fluid, as if the map makers were grappling with reports of a centralized authority that defied European comprehension? The disappearance begins subtly here. By the mid-1160s, as Russian expansion under the Tsars accelerated, Tartaria's borders start to blur, with Siberia increasingly claimed as Russian territory. Was this cartographic shift a reflection of conquest, or the first strokes in a broader effort to assimilate a rival legacy into emerging empires? By the 18th century, the maps evolve into even more elaborate testimonies, such as Peter van der Aar's 1700 compilation, which includes Tartaria Magni Chami Imperium, a detailed chart drawing from Whitson's travels and Jesuit missionaries' reports. This map portrays Tartaria as an imperial powerhouse, with roads connecting bustling trade hubs like Tobolsk and Astrakhan, and notations of advanced fortifications that echo the star forts we pondered earlier. Van der Aar's work, part of his Grand Atlas, shows the region teeming with resources, mines, forests, and rivers navigable by grand vessels, hinting at a sophisticated infrastructure. Yet as the century progresses, figures like the French cartographer Guillaume de Lisle in 1706 begin to fragment Tartaria further, labeling parts as Petite Tartarie near the Black Sea and Grande Tartarie extending to the Arctic. De Lisle's maps, informed by Russian academies, introduce skepticism, questioning the unity of the area and attributing it to outdated Mongol influences. This fragmentation accelerates. By 1740, Izaketuranin's Nova Carta de la Tartavia depicts a shrinking domain, with borders encroached by King China in the east and Russian principalities in the west. Tyrion's annotations speak of recent observations, but whose observations? The map's scale at 118 million reveals a land once vast, now compartmentalized, its name relegated to footnotes. The 19th century marks the pivotal vanishing act, where Tartaria dissolves like mist in the morning sun. In John Pinkerton's 1818 Modern Atlas, the term lingers faintly over Central Asia. But by the 1830s, maps from the Society for the Diffusion of Useful Knowledge excise it entirely, replacing it with Russian Empire or Chinese Turkestan. This erasure coincides with the height of European imperialism, the Opium Wars in China, the Great Game in Central Asia, periods when colonial powers redrew boundaries to suit their ambitions. Russian historians like Vasily Tatashev in the 1740s had already begun reclassifying Tartaria as mere nomadic lands absorbed by the Tsars, while British cartographers like Aaron Arrowsmith in 1804 mapped Siberia without the Tartarian label, emphasizing British exploratory claims. The question lingers: was this a natural refinement of knowledge as explorers filled in blanks, or an orchestrated purge? Conspiracy lenses suggest the latter, pointing to the Vatican's influence through Jesuit mapmakers who standardized geography to align with Eurocentric doctrines, omitting non-Christian empires that might undermine biblical timelines or colonial justifications. Delving into the mechanisms of this rewriting unveils a symphony of subtle manipulations. Mapmaking was never neutral. It was a tool of power, funded by monarchs and academies with agendas. The Russian Academy of Sciences, founded in 1724, commissioned surveys that systematically Russified Tartarian regions, renaming cities and rivers to erase Mongol Tatar roots. Similarly, the Qing dynasty's 1708 Jesuit-led surveys integrated Chinese Tartary into imperial maps, suppressing nomadic autonomy. In Europe, the Enlightenment's emphasis on empirical science led to the dismissal of vague terms like Tartaria as relics of medieval ignorance. Yet, this conveniently ignored eyewitness accounts from travelers like William of Rubruck in the 13th century, who described a Tartar empire of unparalleled scope. The 1784 edition of the Encyclopaedia Britannica still references Tartary as a vast country in the northern parts of Asia, but by the 1911 edition, it's reduced to a historical footnote, its disappearance attributed to better knowledge. Better for whom? The timing aligns with the rise of nationalism, where emerging states like Russia and China consolidated narratives that portrayed them as eternal sovereigns, not successors to a greater precursor. Hidden within these maps are symbols and anomalies that ignite further speculation. Ortelius's 150-70 map includes vignettes of tented encampments and crowned figures, implying royalty beyond mere khans. Hondius's 1633 version features mythical elements like the Lake of Kitay, a body of water that vanishes in later maps, perhaps representing a flooded Tartarian heartland. Tyrion's 1740 chart shows unexplained blank spaces in the interior, as if certain knowledge was withheld. Some theorists examine the projections themselves. Mercator's conformal maps distort northern latitudes, exaggerating Tartaria's size, which later cylindrical projections minimized, visually shrinking the region. Could this be intentional cartographic sleight of hand? Moreover, watermarks and dedications on these maps often link to secretive societies. For instance, Van der Aar's works bear emblems associated with Freemasonic guilds groups accused of guarding esoteric histories. The broader implications ripple outward, connecting to global revisions. In the Americas, early maps, like those of California as an island, persisted until the mid-18th century, mirroring Tartaria's fate, where mythical geographies were corrected to fit colonial expansions. The Bun 1650 map by Nicolas Anson shows Tartaria, extending to the Bering Strait, hinting at trans-Pacific connections with Native American cultures, whose oral histories speak of ancient eastern migrations. If Tartaria encompassed such breadth, its erasure might conceal shared technologies or bloodlines, like the Moorish and indigenous links we've explored. Russian expansion under Peter the Great in the early 1700s accelerated this, with edicts destroying pre-Petrine records, including maps that depicted Tartaria as an equal rival. As we sift through digital archives today, remnants surface on platforms like the David Rumsey Historical Map Collection, where over a dozen Tartaria maps from 1673 onward reveal consistent depictions until abrupt changes in the 1800s. A 16073 map from Jan Bleo's atlas shows Tartaria with detailed ethnographies, including Tatari Vagabundi wandering tribes, that some interpret as displaced survivors of a fallen empire. The Library of Congress's 2015 blog on tracking Tartary acknowledges the term's longevity, but attributes its fade to exploration. Yet, even there, questions arise about why such a prominent label evaporated so completely. Pseudo-historical voices amplify the mystery, claiming institutions like the Smithsonian hoarded Tartarian maps post-1850s, aligning with the mud flood era to prevent revelations of advanced predecessors. In online forums, enthusiasts zestek discrepancies, like the Hunodra 1740 Tyrion map's inclusion of recent observations that contradict earlier expanses, suggesting fabricated updates. The Vatican's secret archives, rumored to hold suppressed Jesuit maps, add a cloak and dagger element. Did papal bulls influence the redrawing to centralize Christian historiography? Ultimately, these ancient maps serve as portals to alternate realities, where Tartaria's disappearance isn't accidental, but a masterpiece of historical alchemy, transmuting empire into myth. Each line, each label beckons us to ask, who held the quill that struck through its name? And what worlds might re-emerge if we dared to redraw the lines? As shadows lengthen over these parchments, the curiosity endures, urging us to seek the maps not drawn, the histories not told. Amid the flickering flames of forgotten epochs, where knowledge once bloomed like eternal gardens, lies the haunting tale of ancient libraries, vast repositories of wisdom that held the keys to civilizations long shrouded in mystery. These sanctuaries of scrolls, codices, and inscribed tablets were not mere collections of words. They were the beating hearts of human ingenuity, safeguarding secrets that could unravel the very threads of our accepted past. Yet, time and again they met fiery ends, their contents reduced to ash in acts that echo with purpose rather than accident. In the shadow of the Tartarian enigma, one cannot help but ponder, did these destructions target specific lore about a global empire, its technologies, and its people? Who wielded the torch? And what truths about Tartaria perished in those infernos, leaving us to piece together fragments from the embers? The most iconic of these tragedies unfolds in the sun-drenched sands of Egypt, where the Great Library of Alexandria stood as a beacon of enlightenment for nearly a millennium. Founded in the 3rd century BCE by Ptolemy I Soter, this monumental edifice housed up to 700,000 scrolls, drawing scholars from across the known world to debate philosophy, mathematics, and astronomy. Legends speak of its Serapeum branch, a temple library hybrid where arcane texts mingled with public knowledge. Historical accounts vary on its demise. Some blame Julius Caesar's accidental blaze in 48 BCE during his siege of the city, while others point to the decree of Theophilus in 391 CE when Christian zealots razed pagan sites, or even the Muslim conquest under Caliph Omar in 642 CE, who allegedly ordered the scrolls burned as fuel for baths. But delve deeper, and questions arise that tie this loss to broader concealments. What if the library contained maps and treatises detailing Tartarian influences, descriptions of vast Asian steppes, where advanced societies harnessed atmospheric energies, or accounts of Moorish scholars who bridged African and Eurasian wisdom? Proponents of hidden histories suggest that Roman emperors, fearing the empowerment of such knowledge, orchestrated partial destructions, while later religious authorities purged texts that challenged biblical timelines. Imagine scrolls recounting Tartarian free energy systems, akin to those we explored earlier, now forever silenced, their absence allowing Western narratives to claim invention anew. Shifting our gaze eastward, the House of Wisdom in Baghdad emerges as another crucible of lost lore, a 9th-century Abbasid marvel that translated Greek, Persian, and Indian texts into Arabic, fostering breakthroughs in algebra, optics, and medicine. Under patrons like Caliph al-Ma'mun, it amassed hundreds of thousands of volumes, serving as a crossroads for intellectuals from diverse faiths. Its destruction in 1058 CE during the Mongol siege under Hulagu Khan is etched in infamy. Rivers ran black with ink from hurled books, and the Tigris bore the weight of knowledge drowned. Mongol chroniclers boasted of the carnage, but whispers persist of selective salvage, precious manuscripts spirited away while others were consigned to flames. In the Tartarian context, this sacking takes on new dimensions. Baghdad's location along Silk Road routes placed it as a potential archive for Tartarian chronicles, perhaps housing Persian epics that wove tales of a northern empire. Hulagu, grandson of Genghis Khan, might have acted not just for conquest, but to eradicate records of a rival legacy, one that portrayed Tartars not as barbarians, but as heirs to sophisticated realms. Could Jesuit intermediaries, influencing later interpretations, have ensured that surviving texts omitted Tartarian references, reshaping history to favor emerging powers? The curiosity lingers. What mathematical treatises on geometric energies, echoing star-fort designs, vanished in that onslaught, leaving gaps in our understanding of ancient sciences? Across the Bosphorus, the Imperial Library of Constantinople offers yet another layer of enigma, a Byzantine treasure trove that endured from the 4th century CE until the city's fall in 1453, housing rare Greek and Roman works, including lost plays by Aristophanes and engineering manuals from Hero of Alexandria. It symbolized the continuity of classical knowledge. The Fourth Crusade in 1204 inflicted initial damage, with Venetian crusaders looting volumes for their own collections. But the final blow came with Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II's conquest, when fires and pillage scattered its remnants. Mehmed, a scholar himself, preserved some texts in the Topkapi Palace, yet thousands perished. Tying this to Tartaria, consider Constantinople's role as a gateway between East and West. Its shelves likely held Byzantine accounts of Scythian and Tartary interactions, perhaps diplomatic missives describing Tartarian courts with advanced metallurgy or navigational arts. The Crusaders, backed by papal ambitions, may have targeted heretical or competing histories, while Ottomans consolidating their empire suppressed narratives that elevated pre-Islamic powers. Intriguingly, surviving fragments in the Vatican Library hint at censored passages. Did these conceal Tartarian influences on Byzantine architecture, like domes that harnessed acoustic resonances? The loss fuels speculation. Were agents of secret societies, such as early Templars, involved in selective destructions to monopolize esoteric knowledge for their orders? Venturing into the New World, the devastation of Mesoamerican libraries by Spanish conquistadors in the 16th century reveals a pattern of cultural erasure that resonates with Tartarian themes. The Maya codices, intricate bark paper books chronicling astronomy, calendars, and myths, numbered in the thousands before Hernán Cortés's arrival. Bishop Diego de Landa's auto da fe in 1562 at Mani incinerated vast quantities, deeming them devilish works, leaving only 4 known survivors today. These codices detailed precise celestial observations and architectural elements that parallel Tartarian claims of global energy grids. Indigenous oral traditions speak of ancient mariners from the east, possibly linking to Moorish or Tartarian navigators who shared pyramid-building techniques across oceans. The Spanish crown, through the Inquisition, systematically destroyed these records to impose Christian dominion, but underlying motives might include concealing pre-Columbian contacts that challenged European supremacy. Imagine codices depicting transatlantic voyages or shared symbols with Asian Tartars, knowledge that, if preserved, could rewrite migration histories. De Landa's own account reveals he salvaged some details, yet it raises doubts. Was his bonfire a cover for smuggling select texts back to Spain, where they molded in royal archives, hidden from public view? In the Iberian Peninsula, the libraries of Al-Andalus under Moorish rule present a poignant chapter, where centers like the Great Mosque of Córdoba housed over 400,000 volumes in the 10th century, rivaling Alexandria in scope. Scholars like Averroes and Maimonides thrived amid translations of Aristotle and Euclid, blending Islamic, Jewish, and Christian thought. The Reconquista's climax in 1492 saw Granada's fall, with Cardinal Cisneros ordering the burning of Arabic manuscripts in 1500, decimating collections that included alchemical treatises and astronomical charts. Moorish descendants, as per audience insights, are posited as Tartarian builders, their libraries potentially archiving African-Asian synergies in engineering and navigation. The Catholic monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella, framed these acts as purification, but perhaps they aimed to obliterate evidence of a superior civilization that profoundly influenced the European Renaissance. Surviving texts in the Escorial Library bear redactions. Did these excise mentions of Tartarian alliances where Moorish fleets connected with Eastern empires? Further afield, the destruction of the Nalanda University Library in India around 1193 by Bakhtiar Khalji's forces consumed a 9-story repository of Buddhist and Hindu manuscripts, some dating back centuries. Flames raged for months, devouring palm leaf tomes on medicine, logic and metallurgy, fields that could intersect with Tartarian technologies. With one of Tartarian technologies, Khalji's invasion, part of broader Turkic expansions, might have targeted syncretic knowledge that blurred Islamic and Dharmic boundaries, including possible records of Central Asian interactions with Tartarian nomads. Similarly, the Library of Ctesiphon in Persia, sacked by Arabs in 637, lost Sasanian annals that chronicled Eastern empires, potentially including Tartarian precursors. These recurrent purges form a chilling mosaic: Romans, Mongols, Crusaders, conquistadors, and reconquerors, all agents in a seeming continuum of obliteration. Conspiracy threads implicate overarching entities like the Jesuits, founded in 1540, who amassed global knowledge while suppressing alternatives, or the Illuminati, rumored to manipulate historical records since the 18th century. In Tartarian lore, these destructions cleared the path for a reset, erasing proofs of free energy, advanced architecture, and unified cultures led by Moors and indigenous peoples. What forbidden tomes on atmospheric harnessing or global navigation burned away, leaving humanity to rediscover them piecemeal? The voids left by these fires are profound, inviting us to imagine alternate timelines where such wisdom endured. Did hidden vaults, like those beneath the Vatican or in monastic cellars, preserve Tartarian fragments for elite eyes only? As embers cool into legend, the quest persists. Who truly feared the light of these libraries? And what revelations await in the ashes we dare to sift? Venturing into the cosmic vastness that overlays our earthly enigmas, we arrive at a threshold where the Tartarian saga intersects with the stars themselves, prompting us to gaze upward and question if the architects of this elusive empire were not solely of this world, What if the towering spires and intricate domes we attribute to human hands were inspired, or even engineered, by visitors from beyond our skies, beings ancient cultures revered as gods descending in fiery chariots? This hypothesis, blending the mud-shrouded ruins of Tartaria with extraterrestrial lore, invites us to re-examine global myths and anomalies, weaving a tapestry that suggests intervention from celestial realms. As we explore this possibility, the boundaries between legend and reality blur, leaving us to wonder, could Tartaria represent humanity's greatest collaboration with the cosmos? A golden age abruptly severed by forces we can scarcely comprehend. Ancient narratives across continents abound with tales of divine figures arriving from the heavens, bestowing knowledge that propelled civilizations forward. In Sumerian epics, the Anunnaki gods who came down from heaven are depicted as architects of human society, mining gold and shaping cities with technologies far beyond primitive tools. These beings, often portrayed with winged discs or hovering craft, mirror descriptions in modern UFO encounters, raising the intriguing prospect that they seeded the foundations of what we now call Tartaria. Envision Enlil and Enki, rival siblings among the Anunnaki, directing the construction of ziggurats that some theorists link to Tartarian energy amplifiers, their step designs channeling cosmic forces into earthly grids. If Tartaria spanned Eurasia and beyond, as antique maps suggest, might these sky gods have unified disparate peoples under a shared blueprint, infusing Moorish and indigenous builders with otherworldly insights? The Epic of Gilgamesh speaks of gods granting eternal life quests and flood warnings, echoes of the mud cataclysm that allegedly buried Tartarian metropolises. Such parallels stir the imagination. Were the Anunnaki the gods from the sky who elevated Tartaria to unparalleled heights, only to withdraw amid internal strife or earthly rebellion? Turning to Hindu scriptures, the Vimanas, flying palaces or chariots propelled by mercury vortices, emerge as vehicles of divine intervention, capable of interstellar travel and devastating warfare. The Mahabharata describes battles where gods unleash weapons akin to nuclear blasts, scorching lands and leaving vitrified ruins that some link to Tartarian sites in Central Asia. Indra, the thunder-wielding deity, rides a Vimana across the skies, much like the thunderbirds in Native American lore who brought fire and knowledge to earthly tribes. Could these myths encode memories of extraterrestrial mentors, guiding Tartarian expansion, their craft mistaken for divine mounts? Archaeological curiosities bolster this notion. In India, the Vithala temple's musical pillars resonate at frequencies that defy simple craftsmanship, potentially tuned to cosmic harmonics taught by sky visitors. Extending this to Tartaria, envision starforts as landing pads for Vimana-like vessels, their geometric precision aligning with stellar constellations to facilitate arrivals from Orion or Sirius. Constellations revered in Egyptian and Dogon African traditions as homes of star beings. The Dogon people of Mali offer compelling anecdotes, their oral histories detailing visits from amphibious entities from Sirius who imparted astronomical knowledge, including the invisible companion star Sirius B, unknown to Western science until the 19th century. These Nommo, arriving in a spinning arc that descended with thunderous noise, taught agriculture, metallurgy, and architecture skills that parallel Tartarian advancements in energy harnessing and monumental building. If Moorish lineages, as audience reflections suggest, trace back to African roots intertwined with such visitations, Tartaria might have been a nexus where Syrian wisdom fused with earthly ingenuity. Picture nomadic Tartarian clans, descendants of these instructed peoples, erecting domes that captured stellar energies, their societies thriving under extraterrestrial patronage until a cosmic rift, perhaps a galactic war, prompted abandonment, leaving mudfloods as a parting cataclysm. Biblical accounts add another dimension, with Ezekiel's vision of a wheeled throne descending from the heavens, its occupants like gleaming metal and multifaceted eyes, suggesting biomechanical craft. This Macabre mysticism, echoed in Jewish Kabbalah, describes ascents to divine realms that some interpret as extraterrestrial abductions or contacts. Linking to Tartaria, consider the lost tribes of Israel, posited by some as migrating to Eurasian steppes, blending with Tartarian cultures under heavenly guidance. The Book of Enoch elaborates on Watcher's angels, who descended to teach forbidden arts like metallurgy and astrology, resulting in hybrid giants, the Nephilim, who might embody the oversized Tartarian builders of lore. Were these Watchers alien geneticists, engineering a superior race to construct global wonders, only for divine or interstellar judgment to flood their creations? Flood myths worldwide, from Noah to Deucalion in Greek tales, reinforce this, portraying sky gods as both creators and destroyers. In Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god, arriving from the east on a raft of snakes, taught calendar systems and pyramid construction before departing on a promise of return. Aztec codices depict him as fair-skinned, bearded, contrasting indigenous features, fueling theories of extraterrestrial origins. If Native Americans, as per insights, descend from biblical tribes influenced by such beings, Tartarian outposts in the Americas could represent Quetzalcoatl's legacy, with pyramids like Teotihuacan's aligning to Pleiades stars, signaling cosmic origins. Envision Tartarian mariners guided by these gods, traversing oceans to erect similar structures, their free energy tech derived from stellar downloads. Modern anomalies amplify this speculation. UFO sightings cluster over ancient sites like the Nazca Lines in Peru, geoglyphs visible only from above, potentially signaling extraterrestrial kin. In Russia near Tartarian heartlands, the Dyatlov Pass incident of 1959 saw hikers perish amid reports of glowing orbs, their injuries defying natural explanations. Crop circles, intricate patterns echoing Tartarian geometries, appear overnight, analyzed as plasma discharges from intelligent sources. Whistleblowers like Bob Lazar describe reverse-engineered craft using element 11.5 time, perhaps remnants of Tartarian alien tech suppressed post-mud flood. The Anunnaki narrative circles back with Sitchin's interpretations, positing these beings as planet Nibiru colonists mining Earth for gold to repair their atmosphere. Tartaria, in this view, could be a post-Diluvian revival, humans augmented by Anunnaki DNA rebuilding under supervision until independence sparked conflict. Cave paintings worldwide depict helmeted figures descending in ovoid craft. From Australia's Woonboona to France's Lascaux, universal memories of intervention. Skeptics dismiss these as archetypal myths, but anomalies persist. The Baghdad Battery, ancient galvanic cells, hint at electric knowledge from sky teachers. Dropper stones in China, etched discs recounting crash-landed aliens, teaching local survival. In Africa, Credo Mutwa Zulu lore speaks of Chitori reptilians manipulating humanity, echoing global serpent god motifs. Government disclosures fuel curiosity, NASA's avoidance of certain lunar anomalies, Pentagon UFO reports admitting unknown aerial phenomena. If Tartaria harnessed anti-gravity or zero-point energy, were these gifts from extraterrestrials later confiscated by modern elites? The Philadelphia experiment's alleged teleportation mishaps might stem from Tartarian alien tech rediscovered. Cultural echoes in media, Ancient Aliens series probing these links, spark debates, with episodes tying Tartarian architecture to extraterrestrial blueprints. Reddit threads buzz with theories: Tartaria as alien colony, mudflood as orbital strike. As we ponder these celestial threads, Tartaria transforms from earthly empire to interstellar outpost, its downfall a cosmic drama. Did gods from the sky uplift humanity only to retreat, leaving us amnesia-bound? The stars hold answers, beckoning us to look up and wonder anew. As the veil of night deepens around us, and the whispers of history beckon you toward the gentle embrace of sleep, we venture into a realm where lost continents rise from the mists of myth, their fates entwined with the shadowy legacy of Tartaria. Imagine, if you will, a world where Atlantis, Lemuria, and Tartaria are not isolated echoes of forgotten glory, but threads in a single magnificent tapestry, a unified saga of rise, splendor, and cataclysmic fall. Could these fabled realms be manifestations of the same ancient superpower, reshaped by time and tale-tellers to obscure a shared truth? Let us first submerge ourselves in the azure depths of Atlantis, that legendary island empire chronicled by Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias around 360 BCE. Drawing from Egyptian priests' accounts, Plato described a naval powerhouse beyond the Pillars of Hercules, likely the Strait of Gibraltar, boasting concentric rings of land and water, advanced metallurgy, and a society ruled by Poseidon-descended kings. Atlantis, he claimed, waged war against ancient Athens 9,000 years prior, only to be swallowed by the sea in a single day and night of earthquakes and floods. Skeptics dismiss it as allegory for hubris, but the parallels to Tartaria ignite curiosity. Both are portrayed as technologically superior domains spanning vast territories, with architectures harnessing natural forces. Atlantis's auric halcyon, a mysterious alloy, echoes Tartarian free energy metals. What if Atlantis was not an isolated isle, but a western outpost of a Tartarian network, its crystal-powered cities mirroring the atmospheric domes we've pondered? The submersion myth aligns eerily with Tartaria's mudflood, suggesting a global deluge that buried rather than drowned, preserving ruins beneath sediment layers. Divers off Cuba's coast have reported submerged megaliths resembling roads and pyramids, while sonar mappings in the Atlantic reveal anomalous formations. Could these be Tartarian-Atlantean hybrids, their shared fate a cycle of destruction engineered to reset human progress? The enigma deepens when we consider the oracles and prophecies woven into Atlantean lore. Edgar Cayce, the 20th century psychic known as the Sleeping Prophet, channeled visions of Atlantis as a crystal-dependent civilization destroyed by misuse of energy sources around 10,500 BCE. Cayce's reading spoke of migrations, Atlantean survivors fleeing to Egypt, the Yucatan, and even the Pyrenees, carrying knowledge that seeded pyramids and esoteric traditions. Tie this to Tartaria, and a pattern emerges. Nomadic Tartars as descendants of these refugees, their vast empire a revival of Atlantean ingenuity across Eurasia. Cayce mentioned a hall of records buried under the Sphinx containing Atlantean artifacts. If unearthed, might it reveal maps linking Atlantis to Tartarian strongholds? The Bimini Road off Florida, a submerged stone pathway discovered in 1968, fuels this speculation. Its precise blocks, aligned with magnetic anomalies, suggest an energy conduit akin to Tartarian grids. As your thoughts drift, ponder. Were the gods Plato described intervening in human affairs the same celestial guides we contemplated earlier, overseeing a unified Atlantis Tartaria, until overreach invited calamity? Now let your imagination sail westward to the Pacific's hidden horizons, where Lemuria, or Mu, beckons as a sunken paradise rivaling Atlantis in allure. Coined by 19th century zoologist Phillips Claytor to explain lemur distributions, Lemuria evolved into a mystical continent through the works of occultists, like Helena Blavatsky in her 1888 book, The Secret Doctrine. Blavatsky envisioned Lemuria as a cradle of humanity, home to a third root race of egg-born beings who wielded psychic powers and built cyclopean structures before perishing in volcanic upheavals around 12,000 years ago. James Churchward, in his 1926 tome Lace of the Lost Continent of Murph, claimed to have deciphered ancient tablets describing Ma as a Pacific empire with 64 million inhabitants, advanced in navigation and hieroglyphics, its colonies stretching to Easter Island and beyond. The intrigue lies in the overlaps with Tartaria. Both are depicted as harmonious, technology-infused societies spanning oceans, with Mu's Narkle tablets allegedly detailing solar-powered devices that parallel Tartarian atmospheric harnesses. Could Lemuria represent Tartaria's eastern flank, its submersion a mirrored fate to Atlantis's, triggered by the same pole-shifting cataclysm that unleashed mud torrents on the steppes? Archaeological whispers amplify this connection. Easter Island's Moai statues, massive basalt figures erected between 1200 and 1600 CE, bear elongated features and enigmatic scripts, rongo that some link to Mu's legacy. Thor Heyerdahl's Kon-Tiki expedition in 1947 demonstrated Pacific crossings were possible with ancient technology, suggesting cultural exchanges between Mu-Lemurian outposts and Tartarian mariners. Underwater ruins off Yonaguni Island, Japan, discovered in 1986, feature terraced stone formations resembling stepped pyramids, dated potentially to 10,000 years old, pre-flood artifacts that could bridge Lemurian psychic architecture with Tartarian precision. Blavatsky's Theosophy posited Lemuria's fall due to moral decay, much like Atlantis. If Tartaria shared this lineage, its mud burial might symbolize a third iteration in a cycle of rises and resets. As sleep tugs at your eyelids, envision Pacific seafarers, heirs to Mu, merging with Eurasian nomads to forge Tartaria, their shared symbols, swastikas and spirals, encoding cosmic knowledge lost to waves and earth. The tapestry grows richer when we interlace these with other ancient marvels, like the sunken city of Dwarka off India's Gujarat coast. Submerged around 1500 BCE, according to marine archaeology, and described in the Mahabharata as Krishna's golden capital with crystal palaces and flying machines, Dwarka's ruins, rectangular blocks and artifacts evoke Atlantean opulence, while its Vedic roots tie to Lemurian psychic traditions. Could Dwarka be a nodal point where Atlantis, Lemuria and Tartaria converged, a trade hub for interstellar-inspired tech? Similarly, the Bolivian Pumapunku's precision-cut andesite stones, interlocked without mortar and dated to 1500 BCE, defy primitive tools. Magnetic anomalies there suggest energy manipulation, linking to Tartarian devices. Tiahuanaco nearby, with its gate of the sun carved from single blocks, aligns with solstices, hinting at a global calendar system shared among these realms. This interconnectedness sparks theories of a pre-Diluvian world government, where Atlantis ruled the Atlantic, Lemuria the Pacific, and Tartaria the continental bridge, united under a council of enlightened beings. The Hopi Native Americans speak of previous worlds destroyed by fire, ice and flood, their Kachina spirits as star people guiding survivors, echoes of Moorish and indigenous roles in Tartaria. The Sumerian king list records reigns spanning thousands of years, pre-flood monarchs, with divine bloodlines, suggesting hybrid rulers overseeing this triune empire. Geological clues heighten the mystery. Ice core data from 12,000 years ago show rapid climate shifts, aligning with younger Dryas impacts that could have sunk Atlantis and Lemuria, while mud-flooding Tartaria. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, buried deliberately around 9600 BCE, features T-pillars with animal carvings, perhaps warnings of cyclic cataclysms. Its location near Tartarian frontiers, implying a post-Lemurian refuge. Occult traditions like Rosicrucianism posit hidden masters preserving Atlantean, Lemurian, and Tartarian wisdom in underground vaults, from Tibet's Shambhala. The emerald tablets of Thoth, allegedly Atlantean, describe energy crystals that resonate with Tartarian ziggurat designs. As we circle these possibilities, the question lingers: were Atlantis, Lemuria, and Tartaria facets of one antediluvian super-civilization, fragmented by disaster and deliberate amnesia? Plato's 9,000 years might symbolize cycles, not chronology, with each fall birthing a new era. Modern anomalies, like Bermuda Triangle vanishings near alleged Atlantean sites or Pacific Ring of Fire quakes over Lemurian remnants, hint at lingering energies. In this nocturnal reverie, let these linked legends lull you, sparking dreams of unified ancients. What submerged secrets await discovery, uniting these realms in a grand cosmic narrative? As the world outside fades into quiet repose, let us turn our attention to a narrative that pulses with the rhythm of hidden lineages and stolen legacies, the profound roles of the Moors and Native Americans in the Tartarian tapestry. Drawing from the echoes of insights, we delve into the provocative idea that these peoples were not peripheral figures in history's grand drama, but the true architects of a vanished empire, descendants of ancient biblical tribes whose contributions were systematically obscured. What secrets lie in their bloodlines, their artistry, and their enduring symbols? Let us unravel these threads, each one an invitation to question the stories we've been told. The Moors, those enigmatic wanderers of medieval lore, emerge from the annals not as mere conquerors or traders, but as bearers of a royal heritage that stretches back to the sands of antiquity. Often portrayed in European chronicles as dark-skinned warriors from North Africa, the term Moor encompassed a mosaic of Berber, Arab, and sub-Saharan peoples who held sway over the Iberian Peninsula for nearly 8 centuries, from 711 to 1492 CE. Their Al-Andalus realm was a crucible of innovation, where algebra flourished under scholars like Al-Khwarizmi, and observatories mapped the stars with precision that rivaled the heavens themselves. But peer beneath the surface, and a bolder claim surfaces. Could the Moors be the living remnants of the tribe of Judah, one of the 12 tribes of Israel, scattered after the Assyrian conquests around 722 BCE? This notion, echoed in esoteric texts and modern fringe scholarship, posits that Judah's descendants migrated westward, blending with African cultures before surging into Europe. Their emblematic lion motifs, seen in Moorish heraldry, mirror Judah's biblical symbol, while their architectural prowess, think the Alhambra's intricate geometric patterns, hints at sacred geometries that could align with Tartarian energy systems we've contemplated. What fuels this intrigue is the Moors' undeniable imprint on global exploration and construction. Historical whispers suggest they navigated the Atlantic long before Columbus, with accounts like those in the 14th century Book of the Knowledge of All Kingdoms, describing African mariners reaching distant shores. If Tartaria represented a worldwide network of advanced settlements, the Moors might have been its seafaring vanguard, erecting mosques and fortresses that doubled as observatories or power hubs. Consider the Mudéjar style in Spain, blending Islamic arches with Christian elements. Could this fusion symbolize a deeper synthesis of Israelite wisdom with Tartarian tech? Proponents argue that European powers, upon the Reconquista, didn't just expel the Moors, they appropriated their knowledge, renaming inventions and erasing lineages to claim supremacy. The destruction of Granada's libraries in 1500, as we touched upon earlier, might have targeted scrolls detailing Judah's exodus, linking Moors to pyramid builders in Egypt and beyond. Imagine a Moorish navigator, star chart in hand, guiding fleets to Tartarian outposts, their dark sails carrying the weight of a biblical promise unfulfilled. Shifting our gaze across the ocean, the Native Americans, or indigenous peoples of the Americas, enter the narrative not as isolated stewards of the land, but as masterful engineers whose works rival the wonders of any ancient world. From the ancestral Puebloan cliff dwellings of the Southwest to the Mississippian mounds of the Midwest, their constructions speak of a sophistication that defies the primitive label thrust upon them by colonial historians. The Cahokia Mounds near modern St. Louis, peaking around 1200 CE, formed a city larger than contemporary London, with earthen pyramids aligned to solstices, celestial calendars that echo Atlantean precision. But here's the tantalizing twist. Could these peoples be the descendants of the 10 lost tribes of Israel, exiled after the Assyrian invasions, migrating across Barinia, or even sailing from the Levant? This theory, popularized in the 19th century by figures like British Israelism advocates, finds roots in biblical prophecies like those in Isaiah foretelling a gathering from the ends of the earth. Native oral traditions, such as the Hopi's emergence myths or the Cherokee's tales of ancient Eastern origins, resonate with Israelite Exodus stories, while linguistic curiosities like alleged Hebrew words in Algonquian languages add layers of mystery. The construction feats of Native Americans further stoke this connection, positioning them as Tartaria's authentic builders. The Inca's Machu Picchu, with its earthquake-resistant stonework fitted without mortar, suggests knowledge of harmonic engineering that could harness seismic energies parallels to Tartarian resilience against cataclysms. In North America, the Serpent Mound in Ohio, a 1,000-foot effigy aligned with lunar cycles, might encode Israelite serpent symbols from Numbers, while Pueblo's underground ceremonial chambers evoke hidden Israelite sanctuaries. If Tartaria encompassed the Americas, as some antique maps imply with Tartary labels near Alaska, native peoples could have been its indigenous core, blending tribal wisdom with imported Israelite lore to erect the Grand Exposition's precursors. Colonial encounters, however, twisted this narrative. Spanish chroniclers like Bartolomé de las Casas noted native resemblances to Jews in customs and physiognomy. Yet missions suppressed such links, burning codices that might have chronicled transoceanic migrations. As the night envelops you, picture a native shaman atop a mound, invoking stars that once guided lost tribes to these shores, their earthworks the foundations of a Tartarian dream deferred. Now intertwine these strands, the Moors as Judah's heirs and natives as the scattered 10 tribes, and a unified vision of Tartaria crystallizes. Insights from enthusiasts paint them as co-creators of this empire, their alliance forging pyramids from Giza to Teotihuacan, railways spanning continents, and cultures rich in navigation and astronomy. Biblical echoes abound. The tribe of Judah's leadership role mirrors Moorish regal influence in Al-Andalus, while the 10 tribes' dispersion aligns with native diaspora myths. Genetic studies add intrigue. Traces of Middle Eastern DNA in some native populations like the Cherokee suggest ancient crossings, while Moorish haplogroups show African Israelite blends. Tartarian symbols, such as the griffin or double-headed eagle, appear in Moorish heraldry and native totems, hinting at shared iconography from a common source. European conquests, in this lens, become acts of usurpation. Columbus's 1492 voyage, backed by expelled Moorish knowledge, led to the plundering of native realms, with Tartarian remnants, Grand Canyons carved as quarries, or buried cities, claimed as discoveries. The transatlantic slave trade further muddled lineages, blending Moorish descendants with native communities, their Israelite heritage diluted yet preserved in spirituals and rituals. Freemasonic influences, with their Israelite temple motifs, might have co-opted this legacy, building modern capitals atop Tartarian sites, while suppressing the builders' stories. Yet pockets of resistance endure. Moorish science temple teachings in early 20th century America revived claims of Moorish American unity as original inhabitants, while native prophecies like the ghost dance foretold a restoration of ancient ways. Archaeological finds, such as Hebrew-inscribed stones in Tennessee or Moorish coins in colonial digs, tease at buried truths. As we ponder these, the question arises, if Moors and natives were Tartaria's true progenitors, heirs to Israel's tribes, what suppressed technologies, star-aligned medicines, or communal harmonies might they reclaim? The roles of these peoples transcend history. They embody a quest for identity amid erasure. We now turn our gaze to the lingering echoes of Tartaria in our modern era. What if the remnants of this enigmatic empire are not confined to dusty archives or buried ruins, but woven into the very fabric of today's world, influencing everything from viral internet debates to cutting-edge scientific pursuits? In the digital age, where information flows like an unending river, Tartaria has resurfaced not as a forgotten footnote, but as a phenomenon captivating online communities. Platforms like Reddit and YouTube have become modern forums for pseudo-historical discussions, with subreddits such as r/Tartaria boasting thousands of members dissecting old maps, architectural anomalies, and geological oddities. As of 2025, these spaces buzz with fresh analyses, including radar scans revealing underground structures beneath the Giza pyramids that some enthusiasts link to Tartarian energy-focusing technologies. These discoveries, reported in scientific outlets, fuel debates about electromagnetic wave amplification in ancient chambers, blurring the lines between established archaeology and speculative theory. Imagine scrolling through late-night threads where users share grainy photos of half-buried windows in European cities, questioning if these are scars from a global mud event rather than mere urban evolution. The allure lies in the empowerment. Ordinary people, armed with smartphones and open-source tools, piecing together a puzzle that mainstream history allegedly overlooks. Podcasts have amplified this resurgence, turning Tartaria into a staple of alternative media. Episodes like Deep Research Tartaria from July 2024 delve into the conspiracy's roots, exploring how ornate World's Fair structures might have been repurposed Tartarian relics, demolished to erase evidence of free energy systems. Listeners are drawn in by narratives of atmospheric electricity harnessed through domes and spires, concepts that echo Nikola Tesla's suppressed inventions. In 2025, shows on platforms like Apple Podcasts continue to dissect CIA declassified documents, some purportedly hinting at hidden civilizations with advanced tech. These discussions aren't just entertainment, they inspire real-world actions, with amateur researchers organizing virtual tours of Tartarian sites via Google Earth, spotting star forts in satellite imagery that align with geomagnetic lines. The question arises, are these patterns coincidences or remnants of a deliberate global network designed for energy distribution? Social media, particularly X, formerly Twitter, serves as a real-time pulse for Tartaria's modern influence. Hashtags like Tartaria and mudflood trend sporadically, with users sharing videos of unexplained urban features, sunken basements in Chicago, or bricked-up doors in San Francisco, that suggest a catastrophic burial event. A July 2025 thread analyzed 19th-century orphan trains as potential cover-ups for mudflood survivors, linking to declassified files that some interpret as evidence of population resets. Influencers channel messages from entities like the Pleiadians, claiming Tartaria was a golden age of harmony disrupted by dark forces, with free energy tech buried alongside its cities. These posts garner thousands of engagements, blending spirituality with conspiracy and prompting users to question energy monopolies in today's world. Could the push for renewable sources be a veiled rediscovery of Tartarian principles, suppressed by the same cabals that allegedly orchestrated the empire's fall? Beyond the digital realm, Tartaria's legacy seeps into contemporary architecture and urban planning, subtly influencing how we build and live. Modern architects draw inspiration from neoclassical elements, domes, arches, and geometric patterns that Tartaria theorists attribute to the lost empire's designs. In cities like Washington, D.C., the capital's dome isn't just aesthetic. Some speculate it incorporates resonant properties for subtle energy flow, a nod to Tartarian capacitors. Recent 2025 projects in sustainable design such as biomimetic buildings that mimic natural frequencies for well-being echo claims of Tartarian structures tuned to heal and uplift. Conferences on sacred geometry, held in venues like the Alhambra-inspired halls, explore how these patterns could optimize modern spaces for health, much like the alleged vibrational chambers of old. The curiosity peaks with initiatives to retrofit historic buildings with smart tech, raising whispers, are we unknowingly reviving Tartarian harmonics in our quest for eco-friendly living? The theory's impact extends to scientific frontiers, where Tartaria's purported free energy systems inspire ongoing research. Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, often cited as a modern echo of Tartarian spires, fuels experiments in wireless power transmission. In 2025, labs worldwide test atmospheric electricity harvesting using high-altitude collectors, reminiscent of the Empire's alleged antennas. Publications like those from the International Journal of Energy Research discuss zero-point energy devices, with some fringe papers linking them to historical anomalies in old-world architecture. Whistleblowers and inventors claim suppression of these technologies, mirroring narratives of Tartarian knowledge hoarded by elites. The Philadelphia experiment's lore, involving naval teleportation gone awry, is revisited in quantum physics circles, with simulations suggesting etheric fields once harnessed by ancient civilizations. As fusion and cold electricity prototypes advance, one wonders, is humanity on the cusp of reclaiming a Tartarian birthright, or merely scratching the surface of a deliberately buried science? Cultural and artistic expressions keep Tartaria alive, transforming it into a symbol of lost potential that resonates in today's creative landscape. Novels and films, such as speculative fiction set in a reimagined Tartarian world, explore themes of erased histories and reclaimed utopias. A 2025 release, Echoes of the Mud Flood, blends historical drama with sci-fi, depicting survivors rebuilding amid suppressed tech. Music producers sample pipe organ resonances from cathedrals, claiming they evoke Tartarian healing frequencies, while artists recreate mandala windows in digital art for meditative apps. Festivals dedicated to old-world architecture draw crowds to sites like Russia's Kremlin, where tours highlight unexplained alignments. This cultural revival fosters a sense of empowerment, encouraging people to question energy dependencies and seek sustainable alternatives inspired by the past. Yet, Tartaria's legacy isn't without controversy, often intersecting with broader conspiracy frameworks that challenge societal norms. In 2025, debates rage on platforms like TikTok, where short videos dissect Tartarian motifs in modern logos, double-headed eagles in corporate emblems, or phoenix symbols in national seals, suggesting hidden continuities. Some link it to free energy suppression theories, citing patents vanished since the 1900s, while others tie it to population resets via orphan trains. These ideas influence activism, with groups advocating for declassified archives on historical cataclysms. The theory's appeal lies in its promise of abundance. If Tartaria harnessed unlimited power, why can't we? This mindset drives innovation in off-grid communities, experimenting with vortex water systems and harmonic gardens, blending myth with practical ecology. As we reflect on these modern manifestations, Tartaria emerges not just as a historical curiosity, but as a catalyst for re-evaluating our world. From underground anomalies revealed by 2025 geophysical surveys to the grassroots decoding of antique maps on forums, evidence continues to surface, blurring lines between fact and fiction. Its influence permeates discussions on climate engineering, where mud flood theories parallel modern geo-disasters, and energy independence, inspiring solar and wind projects that unwittingly mimic atmospheric collection. Even in psychology, the collective fascination points to a deeper human yearning for a time when harmony reigned, free from scarcity's grip. Could this legacy herald a new era where rediscovered principles transform society, or does it warn of cycles repeating, with resets looming if we ignore the signs? Wind hours nueto pomit thee of this wind signs. As the final embers of our exploration flicker in the gathering dusk, it is time to draw the threads of this extraordinary tapestry together. We have journeyed through the labyrinthine secrets of Tartaria, a realm that defies the confines of conventional chronicles. Let us linger on the forgotten truths we've unearthed, allowing them to resonate like distant echoes in a vast, uncharted cavern. What revelations await those who dare to probe deeper? How might these shadows of the past illuminate the path ahead? As you recline in the comfort of your sanctuary, permit these questions to swirl softly in your mind, inviting a peaceful curiosity. Throughout our odyssey, we've peeled back layers of deception to reveal a narrative far richer than the sanitized pages of history books. The cataclysmic mud flood, that viscous tide of earth and enigma, stands as a pivotal force, not merely a geological quirk, but a potential harbinger of orchestrated oblivion, burying cities and silencing technologies that once harnessed the very breath of the atmosphere. We've marveled at star forts, those stellar sentinels etched into the landscape, their geometries whispering of energies untapped and purposes concealed. The world's fairs, those fleeting spectacles of splendor, emerge as veiled exhibitions of salvaged grandeur, dismantled in haste to shroud the empire's vestiges. Ancient maps, with their vanishing ink, chart a deliberate rewriting of borders, while scorched libraries mourn the incineration of knowledge that could have rewritten our origins. Extraterrestrial whispers and links to sunken realms like Atlantis and Lemuria expand the canvas, suggesting Tartaria as a nexus in a cosmic drama. The Moors and Native Americans, posited as heirs to Israel's scattered tribes, reclaim their roles as master builders, their legacies pilfered yet persistent. And in our contemporary world, these echoes reverberate through digital dialogues and scientific stirrings, reminding us that the past is never truly interred. Yet, the true power of this exploration lies not in definitive answers, but in the fertile ground of inquiry it cultivates. Consider how Tartaria's shadow extends into the innovations and debates of our time, challenging us to question the foundations upon which we build our realities. Recent discussions in 2025, for instance, have seen scholars and enthusiasts alike dissecting Western maps' evolution of Tartary, as highlighted in a June Library of Congress blog that traces the term's float across centuries, pondering why such a vast label dissolved into obscurity. This analysis invites us to ask, was it mere cartographic refinement, or a subtle erasure of a unified domain? Similarly, podcast episodes from February 2025 delve into the empire's colossal reach, theorizing that perennial architecture worldwide stems from Tartarian hands, only to be claimed by later narratives after a mudslide catastrophe. These conversations, amplified on platforms like Apple Podcasts, blend historical scrutiny with speculative flair, urging listeners to envision a world where free energy flowed unbound, suppressed by industrial titans who reshaped society in their image. On social spheres, the discourse pulses with vitality, as seen in X threads from July 2025, where users dissect the theory's implications for ancient floods and diasporas, proposing Tartaria as a pre-deluge powerhouse, seeding civilizations from Scythians to Ammonites. Videos shared in these exchanges explore rewritten histories, with one July post framing communism as a tool to expunge Tartarian traces, such as the demolition of Moscow's Cathedral of Christ the Savior in 1931. Another August 2025 clip debunks yet reaffirms the intrigue, noting how the theory transforms vague Asian regions into a lost utopia unsupported by mainstream evidence, but rich in architectural puzzles. These online exchanges, often laced with images of cyclopean walls and star lore, foster a community-driven quest where everyday detectives uncover seals and artifacts that mainstream timelines dismiss. The theory's viral spread on TikTok and Reddit, as cautioned in earlier analyses, borders on the pseudo-historical, yet its dangers lie in how it reframes benign curiosities into extremist lenses, though for many it's a harmless spark of doubt against dogmatic narratives. This resurgence isn't confined to screens. It permeates tangible pursuits where Tartaria's palpable influence inspires re-evaluations of our built environment. In 2025, geophysical surveys employing ground-penetrating radar have unveiled subterranean anomalies beneath historic sites, from Eurasian steppes to American mounds, prompting whispers of buried Tartarian infrastructures. These findings, shared in academic circles, align with theories of mud flood dispersals, where survivors carried cosmic narratives to new lands, as echoed in July X posts linking Akkadian flames to Scythian antiquity. Inventors tinkering with atmospheric electricity prototypes cite historical precedents, wondering if suppressed patents from the 1900s stem from looted Tartarian blueprints. Even in environmental activism, the empire's harmonious designs inspire calls for architecture that resonates with nature's frequencies, countering the sterile grids of modernity. But beyond these tangible traces, Tartaria's legacy endures as a metaphor for the human spirit's unquenchable thirst for truth amid obscurity. It compels us to confront the possibility that our world is built upon layers of omission, where Moors and natives, as royal and lost tribes, forged empires only to have their stories appropriated. The extraterrestrial and ancient civilization links we've traced suggest a grander cosmic play, where interventions from the stars or sunken continents like Lemuria seeded a unified golden age. In this light, the mud flood becomes more than a disaster. It's a symbol of resets, a warning that cycles of erasure might recur if we remain complacent. And so, my dear companions in curiosity, I issue a heartfelt call to action. Do not let these whispers fade into the night. Embark on your own investigations, pore over antique maps in digital libraries, visit star forts with fresh eyes, or join online forums to share your insights. The truth often hides in the quiet spaces between facts. It's in those spaces that discovery awaits. As our time together draws to a serene close, reflect on how Tartaria's enigma mirrors our own quests for meaning in an uncertain world. Recent 2025 explorations, such as those mapping Tartary's float on Western charts, remind us that history is fluid, ever open to reinterpretation. Podcasts probing its colossal scope encourage us to envision alternative paths humanity might have taken, free from the chains of scarcity, and in X dialogues dissecting its diaspora and suppressed lore, we find a collective awakening, a reminder that questioning is the spark of progress. May these insights accompany you into dreams where the boundaries of possibility expand without limit.